business will be an invocation by Reverend Bubba Small, First Baptist Church, Fredericksburg, Texas. Bubba, if you would please come forward and give us an invocation.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for the invitation. And anyone that would like to pray, you're invited to join with me as we pray. Our Father in heaven, God.
Stanford, thank you, Bob. Appreciate the first one of many to come, I hope. Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm gonna talk with the mic here. This is a proclamation. This is really a very neat one too. I really appreciate Tammy bringing this to our attention. Proclamation, whereas Dorothy Farmer Roosevelt will be honored by friends and relatives on July 1, 2021 in the celebration of her 100th birthday. And whereas Dorothy Farmer Roosevelt was born in Fredonia, Kentucky on July 1, 1921. Whereas Dorothy Farmer Roosevelt married Master Sergeant Theodore Roosevelt, U.S. Marine Corps, on January 10, 1948, and they remained happily married for 63 years until April the 4th, 2011, on his death. Whereas Dorothy Roosevelt served her country with honor in the United States Navy during World War II from September 21, 1944 to January 15, 1948, she served as a telegraph first class and was a WAVE, women accepted for voluntary emergency services. Whereas Dorothy Farmer Roosevelt worked for a short period of time at General Motors plant in Flint, Michigan, but traveled from duty station to duty station while her husband continued his Marine Corps career. Whereas Dorothy Farmer Roosevelt became a permanent Texan in October 2015, and whereas Dorothy Farmer Roosevelt has lived during the most eventful century of this nation's history and has been a model and inspiration to her family and for those who have known her. Now, therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Fredericksburg, Texas, I hereby declare July 1st, 2021 as Dorothy Farmer Roosevelt Day in the city of Fredericksburg. On behalf of the city council and the citizens of Fredericksburg, I offer sincere congratulations and best wishes to Ms. Roosevelt for many more happy days in the future to be shared with her families and friends. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the great deal of the city of Fredericksburg, Texas to be affixed to this 21st day of June, 2021. David, do you want to say anything about the celebration on the cover? Please hold it. Thank you so much. Do you want a picture, please? You do. Okay, we're going to go to employee recognitions. Kent?
Mayor and council members, it gives me pleasure tonight to recognize a couple of our employees. First off, I want to recognize an employee in the police department, and second, recognition to the street department. So last week I received an email from Cheryl Jacks. I think most of y'all know her. She's a principal at Fredericksburg Middle School, and she wanted to pass along her appreciation for all the efforts of our school resource officer at middle school, Preston Spitt. She says, I would like to express my appreciation for the wonderful job Officer Preston Spitt has done at the middle school this year. He is very positive and truly cares about the students and staff on our campus. He has been visible and has worked on building a positive rapport with students, staff, and community members. He is willing to go above and beyond to support the middle school families and staff as needed, even if it is after hours or on the weekends. Officer Smith is a great asset to the Fredericksburg Middle School, and we are thankful to have him. So want to recognize Officer Smith, and we get a lot of compliments about both of our school resource officers, one at the high school and one at the middle school. And I think you may know that the FISD is going to be requesting a third school resource officer next year, and we'll be talking about that during the budget discussions this summer. So anyway, good comments about that police officer. And then the second compliment I wanted to share with the council comes from one of our dear friends, Larry Wirtz. We all know Larry, who lives up in Windcrest. And this was passed along to us regarding the street department. And I think you all know we're in the middle of paving season right now, so normally we get our share of complaints about paving and how it disrupts certain areas. But in this case, Mr. Wirtz was very complimentary about the paving crew. And he says the paving crew did a very good job at Windcrest. They were very well organized, courteous to the residents, and placed safety as a high priority. Please give them our thanks. Best regards, Larry Wirtz. So again, street department continues to do a great job, and that's not an easy task, especially with the hot weather conditions and trying to control traffic and try to keep the weather conditions monitored and so forth. It's a real tough job as far as the annual paving, but again, as Mr. Wirtz indicates, they're doing a great job in the paving program again this year. So that's all we wanted to offer this evening, Mayor and Council. So thank you
very much, Kent. That's always good news to hear good things about our folks. Okay, we have public comment. We will have for 3 minutes. You will give a 1 minute. We will get a 1 minute warning. Could we hear what that 1 minute warning is? Thank you. And when you come up, if you'll state your name and if you're a citizen of Fredericksburg. The first one that signed up for public comment would be Tom Marshall, and then Mary Lee Marshall will be next. Tom?
My name's Tom Marshall.
Okay, Mary Lee, and then after that would be George.
Mary. And Lincoln was already worried that it could perish from the earth. And we have, right now, our liberties seem to be back here, grateful. We can't go through this again. We need a new birth of freedom in our country. Woo. In Texas, we are more free than most places. In Fredericksburg, we're more free than lots of other places in Texas. We've got it good. But I'll just say again, let's remember our First Amendment, our guaranteed freedoms, freedom of assembly and speech, and on and on. And I appeal to you to keep our liberties foremost in your mind in all of your deliberations, more than fixing our problems for us, unless they're problems we absolutely, as individuals, can't do anything about. Please protect our freedoms. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Janet? Are you Janet? Oh,
Is there another one? Oh, go
no,
ahead.
there is a Janet Cobb. I'm sorry.
Which one?
No, I know how to say Jeanette Horsemuth. This is Jeanette Cobb. Or Janet Cobb. I'm sorry, Janet. I apologize. First name wrongs. Apologize. You'll get your chance, promise.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and city employees. I just want to acknowledge how much I appreciate the mayor's leadership, not yesterday, but at the last council meeting, because I saw residents stand up here and just say how much they would really like to have prayer. And that seems like a small thing, but it was not a small thing to those people, and I can guarantee you it was not a small thing to God. So I just want to acknowledge and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for turning the tide on that, because I really believe you did.
Thank you.
And I also want to acknowledge the people that were paving. They paved our street. They were very kind, very courteous. One employee ran down after me because I was about to go into an area that would not have been good with a lot of tar. So he ran after me and stopped me from doing that. So I appreciate that. I'm here on behalf of my mother-in-law. She's elderly, 91 years old. And she lives on a street that is designated as a planned unit development. The same street Mr. Willamy lives on. And I'm sure you read his article in the paper. There's a problem, and it's a heavy problem, and I know that you all are aware of it. I know Mr. Lutz is very keenly aware of it. There's a problem with enforcing the code enforcement of the short-term rentals. There's a particular one on that street that has not had a permit, and unfortunately had many people there this weekend. And when some of the neighbors went and knocked on the door and they said, oh, we're relatives, but they're not relatives every single weekend. So I know that we're not naive, that people find a way around things. So it's a heavy task set before you all, but it's an important task, because if this is not done right, then, as you know, it can quickly get way out of control. And short-term rentals are not going to go away. I've looked it up. I mean, City of Austin, you cannot. It's already been litigated where they tried to make the residents live on site that have these. It's already gone to court. And the judge overturned it, said, no, they have the right to do this. But what you all do have the right to do is to put in ordinances in place with the city to try to retain the residential areas as best you can, or to limit some of the nuisances that occur. And people are going to be people. They're not always honest.
Janet,
So,
your time is up, but I appreciate your comments.
all right, thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Okay, Jeanette.
Good evening. My name's Jeanette, and I live in Fredericksburg. I also want to thank Mayor Keeney and also the members of the council who voted to include prayer, the invocation, before the council. It feels really nice to just recognize there's somebody bigger than us that's looking out for us and who we can ask for their help and guidance, especially in the important work of governing our city. So thank you very much. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the budget because that's something that for the past, I don't know, about 6 or 7 years now is certainly affecting me, but I know it's affecting all my neighbors. I have talked to them over the years. One time I brought like 40 petitions from just a few blocks around my house. But I just asked the city to really consider being conservative on the budget. Every year, it seems to go up and up and up, even though we have more people moving in who are paying taxes, But because many of us do not, our incomes are not increasing. Every year, we have to make more and more cuts in our budget. Is this on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, every year we have to make more and more cuts in our household budget and family household budgets to cover the expanding city budget. While incomes for many of us remains the same, the burden that we bear resulting from the continued rise in property values and increasing taxes has become unsustainable. Many of us are at a tipping point. We are incrementally being taxed out of our homes and the community to which we love and live. I've been here 30 years. I've raised my kids here. I've been real involved in the community, my children too. What I've seen happen in my own community is people happy to leave because they can't pay the taxes. And I'm getting to that point too. My neighbor is considering over the past next year if things continue. And what happens is these other people are buying up these houses, and there are people that are then tearing down the house, building a huge house on there. They don't even live here. So if you really want to retain the communities and the families, which you so well stood up for a couple of weeks ago, this is one area I think you might consider. So the budget, a couple of things, $150,000 that you're now not having to spend on the golf course. Please don't look at that and say, oh, now we have $150,000 to spend. Also, you increase the employee benefits, the retirement, and even where it was that you had already raised up to 6% last year, and now you just raised up to 7%. As Polly so well laid out, is not unreasonable. 6% was not unreasonable compared to all the other people. So just things like that. Just be mindful of the people that have to pay for your expenses. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I believe those were the only folks that had signed up for public comment. Is that correct? I think my list is complete here. Okay, we're going to move on now to item 8A. Now, we do have a couple of folks who have signed up for public comment. First, I'm going to read what it is, and then I'm going to have those folks come up.
Sure.
7A. No, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, I jumped the gun. I'm so excited about public comment. Okay, consent agenda. The following items may be acted upon in a single motion. No separate discussion or action or any of these items will be held unless pulled from at the request of a member of the city council. A, consider approval of the city council minutes, June 7, 2021 special meeting. I, June 7, 2021 regular meeting. Is there anyone here who needs to pull either one of these? If not, I'll entertain a moment to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Jerry, second by Tom. Any further discussion?
Sorry, there was an amendment. There was an amendment that I sent out this afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. It's on page 4 of the regular meeting on June the 7th. And it's Jeanette Harmuth's comments, and I had put our country was founded on the word of God. And she actually said our country was founded on a belief in God. And so I need to change that.
Okay.
Okay.
So amend that to read as Shelley presented.
Okay,
I'll second.
say motion by Jerry, Tom, to include the corrections. All those in favor?
Aye.
There is none. Thank you. Sorry, I just jumped ahead there. Okay, 8, other action items. A, we have 2 people to speak to that. Consider discuss the possible action to initiate a text amendment to section 8.00 temporary use types of cities adopt zoning code regarding the use of tents in the historic district overlay district. Okay, the first person I'm going to call on for 8A would be Ed Kosar.
No.
Again, your name and if you live in the city, please.
Thank you. And working on my residency. Generally, I'm speaking about the amendment before the council that the Historical Review Board has been working on, and I believe that Mr. Lutz has been working with the zoning committee on as well. You guys know I spoke before you all a meeting or 2 ago, and on behalf of Councilperson O'Neill, just a quick update on that is, and you may be aware, I think you attended a few meetings. Okay. This is a property in the historical overlay of the Central Business District. We're asking that it be allowed tents, like across the street the market plots has, and the churches in the area have, and the museums in the area have. This property was originally built on in 1847, 11 years after the Alamo, added on in 1867. It was the first apothecary in Fredericksburg, and then a blacksmith owned it and built a blacksmith shop. And then the Herman Sons had a celebration area back there that was adjacent to their bowling alley. So it's really historical. We put a lot of investment in it, and invited all y'all to come see it. One person did, and you should. And so our request is that you just continue on the city manager's recommendation that event venues in the historic overlay of the Central Business District be allowed to use tents. From my perspective, there is a business justification, but there's also historical justification. That is, people get to see right there across the street from market plots what a historic residence looked like, what a blacksmith shop, and really what really a restoration that's consistent with the historical restoration guidelines, both at the federal and the state and the city of Fredericksburg, which we supported, looks like. It can be done, and it can be a viable business going forward. So I think those are my main points, and we just really appreciate y'all's support of that and your diligence and your efforts. And I know you're doing everything you can under the law and within the will of the city to make it happen. So
Thank you. Okay, we have one other person, that would be Jeanette.
Yes, hi, Jeanette, Fredericksburg. I don't know I don't know what the ruling is on the tents, if it's all the historic district or just in the front. But I'm just going to throw this out. If it is everything, because now my house is part of the historic district, I'm several blocks away from Main Street, and I would think that people should be allowed to put up tents. For instance, if I were to have a gathering in the middle of the summer, we have a nice big yard. Couldn't I put a tent up for shade and then take it down? I mean, that seems like it'd be reasonable, and we should be able to do that. So, like I said, I didn't know what all the parameters were on the tents, but consider that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeanette. Jason, you want to respond to that, please?
Yes, ma'am. So for residential uses like yourself, if you were having an outdoor gathering, barbecue, birthday, there'd be no prohibition on you putting up a tent. You can do that in the privacy of your home. What the tent regulation covers is commercial businesses within the historic district. So we have some prohibitions against commercial facilities using those tents outside of special events, trade days, or Oktoberfest or something like that. But as far as a residential standpoint, you can utilize those tents. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I believe that's all the public comment that had signed up, so we can't, what? Oh, Jason, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Council, good evening. As you recall, Mr. Kauser approached the city for his event center. He wanted to start doing weddings. When we started looking through the code, we saw that tents were prohibited. Mr. Kauser did hold a wedding back in June, and so that was exempt under the ordinance. He was allowed to utilize the wedding venue. The wedding is a religious assembly, so he was able to do that. But I think he's looking for a more permanent solution under the code. Staff talked to the Historic Review Board, got their thoughts on that. I think their general feeling was that they felt event centers should be allowed to utilize tents. They understood as far as the business goes, that's what they would be looking at doing, similar to restaurants that utilize umbrellas. They did discuss possibility of doing that as a conditional use permit. They also talked about putting a cap on the number of days you could do that moving forward. And they also discussed obviously having to approve the color and form and all of that. So those were kind of the feedback that we got from them. And speaking with the city attorney and my staff looking at it, we kind of have some similar recommendations if council wants to move forward with amending that ordinance. I think first and foremost is we clearly define event center would be the first recommendation. There is a difference between Mr. Kauser's business, who is a pure event center, and maybe a tasting room that may host events or private parties. What we don't want to do is kind of open this up by right to every business to where we start seeing people expand their business via tent versus construction. We think long-term that's going to be an issue for the city. I think the other issue that we looked at was how do we understand there should be a removal requirement for the tent, X amount of days after the event, no more prior. But ultimately, we don't know that there should be a limit on the number of days per year. Mr. Kauser is running an event center. If we want him to be a successful event center, he would be hosting events multiple times a week, whether they're birthday parties, they could be office get-togethers, team building. So there's a big use that could be expanded there. So we would definitely want to discuss how to time frames to come up and down, but maybe not a hard cap because that may be difficult to work with. The other issue is on the regards to the, obviously the color, have HRB review that. Definition is the most important, but I think at this point, staff would probably be against a CUP process. We feel that we should just get that through the definitions. If it's an event center that we're okay with, then that's the event center. We don't want to get into a situation where we start having everybody come up for a CUP for a special event if they are not an event center. So those are kind of the things that staff was looking at after getting some guidance. And so I can answer any more questions if you like, but I'll turn that back over to you. Thank you.
So Mayor, we need to clarify the process because I think there may be some misunderstanding that we're here to pass some sort of regulation tonight. And Daniel will tell you that anytime we get ready to amend our zoning ordinance, it requires the city council to initiate the action to amend the zoning ordinance. So all we're asking you to do tonight is to initiate action directing staff to work on an amendment to our zoning ordinance. Then we will put that on the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Will that be July or August? Will be on the agenda?
That'll be August based on our notification requirements.
Okay, we have a notification requirement, so it'll go to Planning and Zoning Commission in August and then be back before the council in either August or September. So that is the process for amending our zoning code. So I wanted to clarify that. And then we just need Mayor to open it up for discussion if the council has any feelings about the process process of the amendments, the color, the restrictions that we want to include in there, any sort of comments on the definition of an event center, any of those would be helpful to us in guiding staff on preparing the ordinance for the planning and zoning and council to consider.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up. Tom, I'll start with you first. Any comments?
According to the packet, said the city's historic review board discussed the request to allow tents in the historic district, and about making amendments that would allow more businesses to utilize them. So the question I have is what other classifications other than event centers might request an exception to the rule. I'm scared of tents in the historic district. Because if we change it, then we have tents by right. If we have a text change in the ordinance, I'm concerned about shoddy-looking tents being up all the time, which is going to become an enforcement issue for an already overworked code enforcement staff. So I sympathize with the Kausers and the issues that they have at the event center. So if the city can craft an ordinance that is exclusive to the central business district, that would be more palatable to me than having an ordinance that allows unlimited use of tents within the historic overlay district.
Thank you. Bobby?
Excuse me. I think it's a good idea to craft an ordinance to allow tents in the historic district. Majority, if I'm not mistaken, but majority of the businesses in the historic district are in the central business district. We expanded the district, but that was primarily residential. I think we need to put some restrictions as far as how long the tents can stay up. And you brought up something in your presentation that if you have 3 events in 1 week, do you take the tent down after every event, or do you leave it up until those 3 events, and then does he have 3 events the next week? So does the tent stay up all the time? So we need some clarification on that. But I think it's a good idea for us to take a hard look at this and allow businesses to be able to use tents. As far as color, majority of the tents I've seen have been white. So I would hate to have somebody that is going to use a tent to have to go through a big, long process to get one approved. I think that needs to be a staff recommendation or staff approval. So, thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
Just for clarification, real quick, sorry, Mayor. On the allowing tents for all business, are you talking all businesses or specifically for event centers?
Event centers.
Thank you, sir.
Event centers.
Don't hesitate to ask questions, Jason. Jerry?
Oh, I went over there and took a look, and I mean, it's a very nice event center over there in the back. You get in the back and man, it opens way up and you start looking around and you can't see it from the street or from the side. You couldn't see the tents there at all. I do like the deal where there's the put up and take down. I would like to see something in that form come up. The main problem we had with the tents was there by the White Elephant when they had that lot there and we had these people coming in. It just wasn't right what they were doing there, putting up a business and keeping the tents up. That wasn't right in the first place. I wouldn't want to see that happen. It'd have to be an event center. What would that do, like with Court Switzer down there in this parking lot if you want to put up a tent? you know, in this parking lot, you know, that we don't want to open up a can of worms there either. But I don't know if there's many other properties there. Well, you have Pioneer Museum down there, every once in a while they put up tents out there, but, you know, they only have them up for the event and then they take them down, so. I agree with Bobby on that. I would like to see something happen there. Get something worked out. I think we can work it all out.
Kathy?
Yeah, I remember the conversation, and I remember that there was a lot of conversation about the tents staying up because there was going to be another event the next day, and so the concern Bobby laid out about that is still ongoing. I don't know how you're going to define event center. I'd be interested in knowing that, Jason. It's pretty clear to me that when the ordinance was drafted, they intentionally left out the Hoffman House from the Historic Overlay District because they do use tents. So the intention was to keep tents out of the Historic Business District. You know, I hate to say you knew what you're getting into when you bought the place, but you did know that tents weren't allowed, or you should have known. I think this could be, if it were allowed beyond the year one business, Mr. Kauser, that then it becomes an enforcement issue for the city. As Tom said, that's already a considerable burden. I think I would in general be opposed to changing the ordinance. But if you come back with something that's more palatable, I'd be happy to take a look at it, but right now I'm not in favor.
Okay, thank you. I'm in favor of moving forward with this, and I think the things that I've been hearing concern was, of course, the color, the timeline, defining an event, what an event really is. I think that's, staff to determine all of that, but I hear what, if you're going to put up a tent 3 days before the event happens, because that's when the provider can do it, you know how that goes. We can get the tent there on Wednesday and the event's on Saturday. And the provider says, well, I can't get back to it until Monday or Tuesday. So I think that's input you should find out from folks who might be involved with tent rental is, there's no sense in squeezing them out before they even get started on a timeline. And they're well versed on that. I would suggest, with what's going on in our state and in our area, I think tent rental is going to be, pretty significant. I'd hate for them to get squeezed out just on setup time. I think there is, by permitting, I would hope that this would be a permit operation where it is in the city hall. As far as enforcement goes, I think it's pretty readily done. There's only going to be one, maybe two to enforce. And I think penalties should be such that those timelines would be adhered to, or the penalties will be stiff enough for them to adhere to that. And I'm always the first guy to say the first time's a warning, the second time's a fine, third or fourth time is we're going to jerk your permit for 60 days, and that would take care of any issues or concerns. It's the enforcement issue of it. And as I understand, through the budget process, we're going to be hiring a new code enforcer to help Ray out. So I think that's not going to be something that's insurmountable as far as enforcement goes. So I would ask that staff continue this process, in my opinion. Do we need a motion or anything?
Yes, sir. We'll need a motion to initiate the zoning change so that we can proceed to planning commission.
Any other comments, council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve, to initiate amendment to the current ordinance.
Is that sufficient?
Second.
Bobby, can you identify maybe the section up the agenda?
Section 8.100, temporary use types of the city's adopted zoning code regarding the use of tents in the historic overlay district.
We have a motion by Bobby. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No, I'm in favor. Okay, so we have, it was 4 with Kathy voting nay on that motion. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to now 9. I'm going backwards now. City manager report. Now, we do have 2 folks who have signed up for that. And the first one that our city manager is going to speak to is short-term regulations, court enforcement, and permits. And Jeanette Hermuth, you're up. And after that would be Tom Marshall.
Yes, hi. I'm in a neighborhood where we have a number of STRs, but, and I know there's some problems, with sometimes noise and different things, and I've heard, people's complaints and everyone weighing in on this. I just want to put something out to think about, and that is, one thing I'm a little concerned about is just property rights, it's a delicate balance, but I would hate to see, so many codes and ordinances and more layers of bureaucracy and more people to, enforce things and do all the administrative and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, people do have property rights. I think we have to be, like I said, mindful, and it's a delicate balance, but anyway, just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Okay, Tom Marshall.
My name's Tom Marshall. I'm a resident of Fredericksburg. About the STRs, I personally don't really have a skin in the game, but I've got some, after living here 30 years, I got some information and ways of looking at it. When I first got here, I built my woodworking shop at the house. I checked with the city to find out, can I actually legally do that? What I found out, there's something that they called home occupation. In other words, if you have a home and you live there, you can use part of it or whatever to generate income. There are some restrictions that applied to that home occupation, but that's it. And it had to do with, noise, not a lot of people coming in and parking and traffic or whatever, and that's what it was. A couple key things there. First one is home occupation. If there is an STR in an R1 or R2 area where someone is not actually living, I don't see that an STR in that area would be legal unless something has changed from 30 years that I've been here. I think I would look at that, in changing the ordinance or looking at the ordinance. Is it actually legal to have an STR if there is not a resident on the premises? As far as behavior of the people at STRs and things like that, I think the same thing applies to any neighbor. You could have a permanent resident that is having parties all the time or whatnot and raising ruckus, and after a certain hour, you'd call the police and or go over and talk to them and say, keep it down or whatever. We're going to have those issues, and yeah, it's a problem for code enforcement with all the STRs, regardless whether or not they're in a commercial area or whatever. STR in a commercial zone, I don't see there's any problem with that. Even if there's not a resident on the premises, it's commercial area used for generating income. So maybe look back into our history, see about why we have a commercial operation in an R1 and R2 area if there's not a resident that qualifies for a home occupation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, those were the 2 that had signed up for that one, so Kent, if you would.
Hey, Mayor and Council, so the first item under City Manager's report is an update on the STR regulations, code enforcement, and permits. So I think you all know we're working on gathering data right now to support changes in our STR regulations. Our development services is working with our police departments, and some of the complaints come through the police department, gathering information on what type of complaints we get and how many. And again, that data is going to be needed, according to Daniel, to support the any major revisions to our STR regulations. So we're working on that. So the other area is code enforcement. We are now recruiting for a new code enforcement officer. We've got some good applications, a couple of good applications. We've interviewed one individual, and we hope to have that position filled in the next several weeks. We still haven't filled that position, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, Ray is continuing to work on weekends. This weekend, he worked on both Friday and Saturday evenings. He had identified 20 trash violations regarding STRs, 2 complaints about STR parking violations, 5 complaints about STRs illegally operating in a planned unit development area. So according to his comments, no noise complaints this weekend, and those came through the police department. But anyway, he's continuing to enforce the current regulations on short-term rentals. And Jason, in case anybody's tuned in tonight, if they have a complaint on STRs, what number do they call to voice that complaint?
If that is after hours, weekend, and it's noise related, I would contact PD. They can get in touch with Ray, but generally noise complaints are handled by the police officers. They have the proper technical equipment to measure noise sound violations. Any other complaints should be directed to Ray's code enforcement line.
Okay. So again, Ray is after it and observing a number of violations and following up on those on the weekends, but looking forward to having some help here in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, our Str permit count has increased. We have currently, according to Shelby today, we have 590 STR permits. Those are current permits in place, and we have 111 pending applications. So that adds up to 635 once if those pending applications are approved. So 590 STR permits and 174 pending applications, I'm sorry. So 590 and 174. So you can, yes, 74. Thank you, my math is off. Okay. And so that's where we are right now. And the last thing I want to report on I know the council's aware of this, but the public, we haven't announced this yet. We do have a city council work session on short-term rentals now scheduled. We checked with the council, and you're all available on September 12th. That meeting will be starting at 5:30. It will be held at the Law Enforcement Center. And this is to get council's guidance on changes that you would like us to include in a revised STR regulations. Actually, it'll be changes to our zoning regulations. So again, that's September 12th, 5:30 at the Law Enforcement Center. And I know all of you have that on your calendar. I checked with you.
September?
I'm sorry, July 12th.
Yes.
July 12th.
Okay, I'll just fix it.
I'm moving ahead there. Moving ahead. July 12th.
You're catching on to my philosophy now. Move
July
ahead.
12th. Sorry.
Now, it's going to be here instead of the University Center?
No, it's at the University Center.
Okay.
July 12th, 5:30, University Center.
Okay.
Yep, that's what I got.
Okay, and so before that meeting, you'll be getting a packet of information from staff to review, and that information will include the data that I just mentioned on the complaints that we're receiving. You'll get information on that. You'll have a summary of the public input that we've gathered on the STRs over the last several weeks. You'll have a comparison on STR regulations from other cities, and then what Jason's going to create, he's going to craft a list of questions for the council to give us some responses on, so that, again, we can get your direction before we go about the redrafting of our regulations. So that will come to you in a packet prior to the July 12th work special meeting. And again, that will be at the University Center. Any questions on STRs other than that?
Yes, I have a question on Avenue Insights.
Okay.
And do we have a contract with Avenue Insights?
Yes. Yes.
And when is that contract?
Requires a 30-day cancellation notice.
Okay, so it's a month to month with a 30-day. Are we planning on talking about that contract?
Yes, we are. And we'll be recommending that we no longer contract with Avenue Insight.
Okay. And when we're going to talk about that at the,
We haven't talked about that. We could, Jason, you want to respond to Tom's question?
I'm sorry, what was that, sir?
are we going to talk about the contract with Avenue at the STR?
Yes, there'll be two aspects of that contract that we'll be discussing. One of those is their ability and how they're performing as far as the permitting side of the short-term rental contract, and then the second will be the hot collection. So they do serve two functions for us at the city, and we'll kind of touch on both of those issues.
Okay.
The second part, I couldn't understand.
The hotel occupancy tax collection. So not only do they do the permits and issue, but they collect those hot and get that to the city as well.
Okay. And we'll talk about whether the city thinks they can do it more efficiently.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And they do a good job, Tom, on our hot collections, and we're recommending we stay with them on hot.
Right. I've had some owners contact me about the permitting and having to change their permit numbers and just some issues that have to do with.
It's a very large source of frustration, right? Both the city and the reservation company. Okay, any other, well, item A?
One other thing, is Ray's phone number on the website?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can it be added to the city message after hours? Or is it already there? I haven't checked.
I do not know if it's on the city after hours, but we can add that.
Okay.
And we can add that to PD's non-emergency as well. We'll try and get that out there as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
So Jason, if they're contacting the PD, they're not calling 911, are they?
No, generally those come through the non-emergency numbers, so they'll call dispatch.
7585?
Yes. And really it depends on the nature of it. I've seen them coming in across the board. They can call Ray contacts PD, they call dispatch, non-emergency, or they can call 911 if it's something that they're just not sure about. So.
Right.
Jason, how do they, I know there was a noise ordinance we had back then we looked at, and when they meter this thing, how far do they go from the property line into the street to meter that, and what is the decibel again, and maybe...
Yes, so there's several aspects to the noise ordinance. First, depends on what zoning district you are in. We have different measurements for those zoning districts. Then we have different hours of operation, so your decibel levels can change between, say, 9 o'clock in the evening and 11 p.m. Generally, 11 is the quiet hours or nighttime hours. Those are measured from the front property line or 50 feet away from the noise source, so one or the other, kind of depends on which district you're in. The current decibel levels for normal, say, evening hours is 65 decibels. When you get into the nighttime hours, it drops back down to 55. So that is something that we will look at. We've identified some measuring issues that we could feel comfortable making some changes as far as maybe helping citizens and neighbors, but that'll be something we bring forward as part of our discussion on the general short-term rentals in general.
Any other questions? No. Okay, we'll move on to 9B, city budget update.
Any public comments on that one?
None.
Okay. So just want to remind the council we're getting started with our budget process, long process over the next couple of months, lots of meetings, lots of discussions, hearings, and so forth. So a couple of things coming up. One is at our next council meeting, we'll have the first public hearing on the budget. This was started a couple of years ago to get public input before we actually prepare and present a budget to the council. So it'll be kind of an open public hearing for any citizen that wants to add any comments on the budget. The actual budget workshops start on July 14th. That's a Wednesday at the, that'll be at 4 o'clock at the Cardinal Room. Reminder on that, that'll be general fund budget discussion. All of you should have that on your calendars. And we will take, after that meeting, we'll take about a 2-week break because of several people being on vacations. And so we'll reconvene the budget discussions on August 2nd with the county commissioners. And then on August 4th, we'll be talking about the enterprise funds and also property tax on August 4th, because we won't get our certified roll till the end of July, so we won't be able to talk about property taxes until August. So again, lots of this is a time of year where we spend a lot of time on developing our budget, and as we go through the process, let us know if you have any questions. That's all I've got right now, Mayor, unless there's any questions on that item.
Council? Okay. We'll move on to C. We do have one person who signed up for the Affordable Housing Coordinator report, James McDonald. That a boy, you're already up.
Including the city manager's report in the agenda item. I know we have a number of bullet points that we go through every night, or every meeting rather, but to add some color commentary and allow the citizens to be up to speed, and also the council what's coming up from the city manager's report, that I think that would be a helpful thing. That being said, I also want to say thank you to the council and city staff. Over the past several months, I've dealt with a number of folks. As Mr. Murby commented last meeting, the golf course has been a complete turnaround. And I recognize that some of the counselors were involved in that, but that was also city staff that put all that together. So great job on that. I also want to say thanks to Jason for putting the attention to the STRs. I know you've had probably innumerable phone calls and hours spent, so I appreciate that. I've also dealt with Jennifer Krupa lately. What a joy. What a joy to deal with. Shelby Collier, the same thing. What a delight. What an absolute delight. Great attitude. And then Shelley, you know, as I've dealt with different city staff, I've yet to deal with one that was not helpful and ready to really dig in. So I wanted to say thank you for that. I'm just going to comment on the tent issue. Councilman Lukenbach, you mentioned that you couldn't see the tent from the street, from the side, from anywhere. Good gracious, what are we doing here? If you can't see it, let him put the dadgum tent up. That seems pretty straightforward to me. But the reason I'm here is the Affordable Housing Coordinator. I remember it's probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, there was a lot of discussion with Habitat for Humanity. They were here asking for waiving of RV spaces, the fees for RV spaces. And I remember that conversation was probably half an hour long over waiving $1,400 worth of fees for an affordable housing project. And here we are talking about an affordable housing coordinator that is no doubt probably a 70,000 plus a year employee, right? This is going to be a professional level employee. We can do a lot to pave the way for affordable housing with 70 grand a year. Before we hire someone, I would ask the council and city staff to form a committee of citizens. We've got brilliant citizens in this town that I think can offer a lot before we go to start adding additional costs to the city. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, James. You must see your clock up there. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay.
Okay, so item C is Affordable Housing Coordinator. Just a quick update. Again, this is a position that's been discussed here in our community, I think for about 12 or 13 years. It first was identified in the, as Councilman Musselman is aware of, in the affordable housing study that we did back about 12 years ago. We had a committee, and they came forward and recommended this position. It also was recommended in 4 years ago in the affordable housing charrette that the chamber put on. It had over 100 people there, met for 2 days, and this was one of the primary recommendations that came out of the charrette. And third, it was one of the major recommendations that came out of the community visioning process that involved over 200 people. So we have had a lot of community input on the need for this position. The council has come forward and said you'd like to create this position, but only if it's a partnership between other community stakeholders. And so what has happened over the last couple of weeks is 2 weeks ago, Councilman Councilman O'Neill and Councilmember Musselman went to the school board. They've agreed to partner on funding this. There are also some other partnerships that have agreed to this. I can't announce them at this point, but we're up to, I think, around $25,000 that have been committed so far from other entities. And so we're working on the council's direction to develop this position as a partner. At this point, the funding levels that we're talking about for the city are somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000. So nothing close to $75,000 or anything of that scope that we're going to be recommending to the council in the budget process. So that's where we are right now. I know Councilman Watson and Councilman O'Neill have sat in on several meetings. You may want to add to that report, but we're making a lot of progress in creating this as a partnership approach. So, Bobby.
And we're looking at making this a contract position for 1 year as opposed to an employee. So that will hopefully alleviate some thoughts. Thank you.
And when we do have a real committee with the housing coordinator, all of the entities that have provided funding and have shown an interest will be part of that committee or whatever it's going to be called, so that there will be input from the private sector and the public sector, hopefully in partnership that will come up with some effective plans for going forward.
So, Mayor and Council, I wish I could give you the other entities that have pledged money yet, but I don't know that we've got their approval to release that information yet, but we are making a lot of progress. So, any other questions on that?
That's good news. That's what we wanted. It's a community problem, and it should be a community effort to attempt to resolve. Thank you. Okay.
Well, I want to thank Todd Adson. He really has been very persistent. He was the one that helped us during the charrette a couple of years ago, and he hasn't given up on this. And I know he came and talked to Councilman O'Neill recently and really pushed this idea once again, and he's been pushing this thing for the last 4 years. So again, I want to compliment him for not giving up on this idea.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to item 9D, broadband improvements, which I tell you today was awful. Was it? Oh, man. Siri kept saying I'm working on it, and I go,
So once again, Mayor and Council, we're developing this broadband improvements, which are needed in our community based upon comments we've heard from local citizens, FISD. We encountered a lot of problems during the ice storm, during COVID. Students were not allowed to participate in some distance learning because of inadequate broadband services, but there's some issues in our community with adequate broadband. And as you know, more and more people are moving to this area wanting broadband or wanting to work at home and so forth. So again, this is a partnership right now between the city, the chamber, and EDC. We've had a county commissioner at the last couple of meetings of this group, and Eric Whiting has been working with a representative from the chamber and developing a proposal for broadband improvements in the city, and also working with the county if they want to participate to expand the improvements in the county. We scheduled Eric to make a presentation to the council in July, at one of your meetings in July, to give you the proposed plan and cost estimate and so forth. And so that'll be on your agenda next month, and we'll have more information then, but we are continuing to work work on that. And again, I want to remind the council, that was one of your major priorities for the city manager for this year.
Thank you. Any questions? We'll move on to 9E, relief route update.
Okay, Mayor and Council, we're getting close to, I think, a decision point on the relief route. I know the mayor and county judge are both wanting to get a decision this year, and we share that interest. We've been working on this for about 8 years now, and so we are meeting this week, the Relief Route Task Force, and working on developing an educational package to present to the public over the next couple of months, and then to get some sort of public input on the relief route. Do we move forward on it, or do we just give up on the idea of a relief route? And so we're either going to do a poll or some sort of survey or something with the public, like in September, October timeframe, and then bring the results of that back to the city council and county commissioners and have y'all decide whether we, again, keep moving forward on the relief route or we push it back another 10 or 20 years. So we are working on that and getting to a decision point in the next couple of months. So any questions on that?
So I guess this is a Daniel question. Can the county have a referendum on the relief route yet to say, yes, we want to continue, no, we don't want to continue?
The county or the city? Because
the county, because the relief route, as far as I know, the entire relief route is outside the city limits of the city of Fredericksburg, and any kind of relief route would be paid for, I would think, would be a county bond issue.
Well, Tom, I can't answer that question right now. I'd have to research that.
Okay.
I can communicate with the county attorney, who would probably be better suited to answer that question.
Well, I'm not an attorney, but we as citizens of Fredericksburg are also in the county.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I think it would have to be both.
Well, so Councilman, when we met, Corey Keller and I met with the county attorney to discuss this, and we also talked to Chris Devens a couple of weeks ago, and their conclusion is county cannot have a binding referendum, and so it would not be a referendum, it would just be a poll or I guess survey, but it would not be a referendum, according to the attorneys we've talked to. So.
Okay, so I understand about the binding aspect of it. I know that people on the Relief Route Task Force have said, why can't we ask the citizens what they think about it? Okay, and so I guess my question is, if we had a non-binding referendum and 80% of the citizens said, yes, we're in favor of a relief route, that would give some indication to the Relief Route Task Force to move forward. And
actually, it's not going to be a Relief Route Task Force. It's going to be up to the city council and county commissioners whether we move forward.
Right, okay, I understand that. Yeah. Okay, but then that would be say the city, if 80% of the people that vote for it say, yeah, we want to move, then I guess that could spur the city on to say, yes, we're willing to fund the environmental.
And all that will be presented to y'all for your consideration. Yes.
Right. Whereas if 80% also said, no, we think it's a bad idea of spending this much money, then that would give us pause as to whether to move to the next step.
But the next step, that's right.
Right.
Okay, any other questions?
Anyone else? Okay.
Could it be put to a vote to the people and just say, we got two options, Friendship Lane or we have this relief route out there?
No, Councilman, the vote will be actually, if we move forward on this in a year or so from now, the county would have to issue bonds to purchase a right-of-way, and that's where the vote would come in. The county vote, which would include, of course, everybody in the city, would vote to issue the bonds to purchase a right-of-way. But we don't know what the cost on the right-of-way is, and that'll take us about another year or so to come up with that information. But do we even want to go to that step? That's the question.
I think it's going to be too damn much.
Again, that's what we're trying to find out.
You said it in a couple of months, right?
The schedule that the task force is on is to present that to you in November. Yes, sir.
Okay, I would have a date, a kill date. Thank you.
And then Ken, at that time, will it be up to the city council and the county commissioners to vote on whether to proceed with an environmental study?
That's right.
Okay.
And Tom, you might want to consider having a joint meeting, city council, county commissioner joint meeting at that time.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to,
Would we consider the Friendship Lane option then? Also at the same,
We could discuss that, yes. Again, that would require voter approval to do that, but you could discuss that, yes, sir.
Okay.
As an alternative.
And you would probably want to talk to the Public Works Department on whether Friendship Lane is a viable option.
Well, I think you get your snow cone machine right down this highway there. No, I think it's something you need to look at. I mean, it's, you've already got half it built.
It's not going to be a snow cone, it's going to be a gate with a toll booth.
Okay. So the last item, Mayor, Council, we don't have any comments on. We have vacancies on our Planning and Zoning Commission, Historic Review Board, and Board of Adjustment that we're trying to fill. Normally, the City Council is real good about going out and encouraging applicants, so that's why this is on the agenda tonight, is to encourage you to, you all have people that want to get involved with the city. This is a good opportunity to learn more about the city and directly participate in the decision-making process. Jason, do you recall how many vacancies we have on each of these that we're trying to fill?
We have one person resigning from the Historic Review Board, possibly a second. However, we had 10 members, and part of our ordinance, we're talking about going down to 9, so that may, depending on how it goes, that may wash. We have one vacancy on the Zoning Board of Adjustment and 2 on P&Z. So we have received a few applications. We'd probably like to make some moves, but we're always looking for.
and they can get their applications off the website or
Yes, sir.
at the office. Okay.
Yeah, they can contact us. We'll be glad to email them. You can download them from the website if they need to. Either way works for us.
Is one of the requirements to be a city resident?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Does that include the Historic Review Board, or do you, if you're on the HRB, can you be on it and live outside the city limits and own property in the historic district?
I'd have to review that. They have different requirements. We have to have attorneys, so there's some qualifications for that board. Yes, sir.
So try to get their applications in pretty soon, because that'll be on your next agenda for your consideration on July 6th.
Let me ask a question then. What's the process? I bring in my application and then where does it go from there?
At that point, we'll gather all the applications and disseminate those to council, and then there y'all can discuss as far as your appointing.
Okay, thank you.
You've already got a job.
I just want the public to know the system.
Oh, okay.
I'm not applying.
No double dipping.
Not applying. Okay, number 10, items for future agenda.
Okay, mayors and council members, I wanted to visit with you a little bit about the next agenda. We of course, kept the agenda tonight pretty light, but things are going to pick up in July and August with budget discussions and STR discussions and other assorted items. So the meeting on July 6th is again on a Tuesday, because July 5th is a holiday. And you can see on the agenda, we have the preliminary list, we have 4 public hearings scheduled that evening. We have the appointments to the Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment. And we also, you don't have it here, but we have 4 executive session items. An update on the water line easement on 290, discussion on purchase of land for a new electric substation. We have you can discuss the appointments to boards and committees in executive session if you want to. And then the 4th item is a report on the litigation on 290 East annexation. So 4 public hearings and 4 executive session items. So I talked to the mayor this afternoon, and if the council's okay with this, what we'd like you to consider is meeting at 4 o'clock that day for the presentation on the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan. And this would allow us to have that presentation for an hour and a half, and then take a break, and then start a regular meeting at 6 o'clock. So if that works out for the rest of the council, we can start the meeting on July 6th at 4 o'clock, and just to report and discuss the Capital Improvement Plan. Does that? And then, because I'm concerned if we don't do that, and we try to schedule that as a 6 o'clock meeting, we might be here till 11 o'clock at night, so.
I'm good with it.
That good?
Yep, it's fine.
Okay. Okay, so that's what we have for July 6th. And July 19th, we have a couple of things coming up that are important. one that I know y'all are looking forward to is a presentation on the proposed new splash pad at Town Pool. Again, this will be a presentation. We'll also have that. We need to include that as a public hearing also, Shelley. We've had several requests to have a public hearing on that to get public input following the presentation. And then we'll have a proposed agreement with the former Texas Rangers Association for managing Fort Martin Scott. So you can see those as well as the zoning change on West Travis on that agenda. So I'm sure we'll have more items to add for July 19th, but that's where we are for that meeting right now. Any questions or comments on any of those items?
Any? Nope. I don't think there is. Okay. Number 11, council comments. Jerry, I'm going to start with you since you're on that end of the table.
Well, the county meeting until week after next. But we did have our market plots redevelopment meeting this morning, and we talked about the fundraising. The market plots has essentially 3 different areas that we're working on with it. The playground, which has been completely torn out, and a new pad. It's going to be similar to the one that is over on Oak Fair Park. It's going to be, there's going to be no sand there, so the kids don't track it everywhere and everything like that. And then the second phase is going to be the Security State Bank drive-through. And what that will be, we're going to be adding restrooms over there, a little kitchenette, and a little conference room, some storage areas. There's going to be a pad that's going to be on, that's Crockett Street, right, on the side?
Yep.
On Crockett Street, where they're most probably where the ice skating ring would be able to set up in order to have their deal there. And then there's going to be on the Austin Street side, there will be seating with umbrellas and things like that around it there too. It's a great project, and we're doing fundraisers for that. And then also if you look at the pavers out there and some of that native rock there, that limestone rock, I mean, it just flaked up with the freeze and everything. The water got down into it and it just cracked it all up. So, you know, that the playground was $269,000. The Security State Bank was 1.4 mil, and then the pavers and that, you're looking at like I think we're looking at about 500,000. I think that's what Andrew has said this morning. So we've been looking at it. We've gotten quite a bit. We've gotten some people that have come forward and done like a $250,000 matching grant. So we're always looking for people to, you know, donate to the project. If you would like, I have some brochures up here that show you the market plots and explain something about it, and has diagrams of what it looks like. So if you do have some spare time and you want to help me out, I've been calling vendors and everybody else trying to get money raised up for these projects. And if you have time and you know somebody that would like to donate towards a great cause to get the square back up to snuff, as far as that way I look at it. We sure, all the help we can get, we'd be glad to do it. My phone number is on the city thing, and you can call me at any time if you're willing to put in some time calling. I got into some of our vendors with the city, and there are like 120 vendors there. I've talked with 32 of them. So they're starting to come through with some monies there. But if you know somebody who would like to donate, if you have an interest in the square, please come forward. Here's some. I brought the brochures. They're right here, and you're more than welcome to take one and take a look at it. If you want to donate, come forward. There is a what do you call it? Pledge. We do have a pledge sheet, like a 3-year pledge that you can also do. So feel free.
Thank you, Jerry. Bobby?
With the Airport Advisory Board meeting today, just a couple stats. The T-hangar occupancy is still at 100%. The wait list has grown to 27. The crosswind flying school has 15 flying students and 7 that are in ground school. And an update on the fuel sales. Through May, we're 46% above last year. But last year, because of the COVID and things like that, but they estimated that they budgeted 400,000 gallons sold for the year. Their new estimate's probably 500,000. The way the business has been the last couple of months, the airport is busy all the time now, and they're having to get fuel delivered at least once a week. So good things going at the airport. I don't know about that.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
I'd like to thank Pastor Bubba Stahl of First Baptist Church for very heartfelt invocation tonight, our first council invocation. So thank you very much for being here. I think there are great things going on in the community at this time. It's busy. I have a meeting with CVB tomorrow, and I have some questions for Tim Lemberg, and I know there have been some questions about destination management. Has been in the news, and so I look forward to a successful summer. We have issues that everybody, I think, in the state of Texas has issues with in employment and finding enough people to provide services, and I believe that is going to be a continuing challenge for businesses and for governmental entities alike.
Kathy?
The Chamber of Commerce had its meeting this week. A couple of important things for the community. They're holding a job fair on June 30th at Market Plaza. I think it's been advertised in the paper, but it's always good to reiterate. There are going to be approximately 30 to 32 employers there waiting to interview people. As of Tuesday, they had 25 employers signed up, looking for 250 positions to fill. So that's an important day to remember, and if you know of anybody who's looking for a job here, please send them over to Marketplatz on the 30th. And the second thing of interest to the community is that the Chamber is again sponsoring a leadership class, and they're looking for people to sign up, become part of that. I think it's a 2-year program, teaches you everything you wanted to know about Fredericksburg and Gillespie County, our history and what's going on now. So that was about it.
Thank you. I only have one point in going off of Tom. We do have an invocation policy, and one of the on the table back there, you will be able to pick it up. We would invite anybody in our community to take a look at this and give Shelley Goodwin a call or an email or a text to become one of the individuals who does the invocation prior to the meeting, or after the meeting is called to order. So I know there's some back there. Give Shelley a call. And so I'm inviting any and all who might want to be a part of this invocation to be part of that. With that, I want to thank everyone for coming and being on live. And so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion by Bobby.
Second.
Have a second by Jerry. Johnny. Oh, boy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? There is none. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.